This week I read Adelita, a Mexican Cinderella story written and illustrated by Tommy DePaula, published by the Penguin Group with a copyright of 2002. This is a folk tale or fiction appropriate for ages 3rd grade through 5th grade. As you can see, the artwork is kind of Mexican folk art. It's very bright and colorful. The story takes place long ago and far away in a Mexican village where we meet Francisco and his wife Adele. She's going to give birth to a baby, so they call for Esperanza, Francisca's nursemaid, and she comes to care for the family. Adele dies shortly after childbirth, leaving Francisco to care for the child himself. And soon he tells Adelita, his young daughter, that he has met another woman, Senora Micaela de Fortuna, who he will marry, and she has 2 daughters, Valentina and Dulce. The story goes as Cinderella's story goes. They live together for a while until Francisco dies, at which point Doña Micaela sends Esperanza away and then begins to treat poor little Adelita like an indentured servant. A young bachelor in the Mexican village named Javier is going to have a ball or a fiesta, and the Doña Micaela's daughters get to go, but of course Adelita is left at home in tears. There's no magic in this Cinderella story. There are no mice that turn into horses or pumpkins that turn into coaches, but Esperanza comes to Adelita's aid and dresses her in her mother's old gown and sends her off to the fiesta wearing a rebozo or a shawl. So of course Javier falls in love with the beautiful young lady, and she leaves at midnight, so the next day he goes on a search for her, and she leaves her mother's rebozo hanging out from a window so that he can find her. He finds her and they live happily ever after. So again, the illustrations take up the entire page. They tell the story, they reinforce the text, and they're brightly colored and in the style of Mexican folk art, in my opinion. I related to this story because everyone knows the Cinderella story, of course. Most of us know it from the Walt Disney version, but I remember a movie called Ever After, made in the 80s with Drew Barrymore and Angelica Houston. It was a great movie. It was colorful, it was romantic, it was funny, and the bad people got what was coming to them. So I think it's a classic everybody can relate to. I think a great project would be to focus on the cultural aspect, because throughout the book they do have some Spanish text. For instance, right here it says capricho or whim. It will always tell the English translation y punto, that is final. But I think I could break my students off into groups. They could talk about and brainstorm what a Mexican fiesta would be like versus a traditional English ball. Maybe focus on a few key points: food, costume, dress, and then create collages, and if time allows, present them to the class or display them on a bulletin board in the lobby. And that is Adelita. Thanks.